Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very pleased to rise to speak to this most timely motion as this tax and spend government sets to do, you guessed it, increase taxes even more on hard-working, middle-class Canadian families. The Prime Minister talks a lot about the middle class. He talks a good game about the middle class. During the last federal election, the Liberals boasted that they would bring back fairness for middle-class Canadians. They've been in office now for 15 months, and the question arises, what exactly have they delivered for middle-class Canadians? What have they done to restore fairness to middle-class Canadians? Mr. Speaker, it seems like the only thing that this government has done to middle-class Canadians is increased taxes on middle-class Canadians. Let's look at the record over the last 15 months. Let's start with the Children's Arts Tax Credit. $250 per child, gone, eliminated, taken out of the pockets of middle-class Canadian families. And what about the Children's Fitness Credit? $1,000 per child, rolled back to $500, and now scheduled to be eliminated next year. $1,000 gone, eliminated, taken out of the pockets of hard-working middle-class Canadians by this government. Then there's the universal child care benefit, eliminated by this government, taking out of the pockets of hard-working middle-class Canadians, in many cases, thousands of dollars out of their pockets. And Mr. Speaker, what about, or Madam Speaker, what about hard-working families who benefited from income splitting? You can forget about it with these Liberals, Madam Speaker, because that too has been eliminated. And what about those textbook tax credits to help students and parents pay for the cost of post-secondary education? Madam Speaker, done like dinner, just like so many other tax reductions that our previous Conservative government brought in and this Liberal government has rolled back. Just when you thought it was getting bad and perhaps when you thought it couldn't get worse, guess what? It did. Because, Madam Speaker, this fall, the Liberal government brought forward two massive tax hikes that disproportionately impact, you guessed it, middle-class Canadians. Starting with a massive CPP tax grab, taking out of the pockets of the average family some $2,200. And not to be outdone by their massive CPP tax hike, the Liberals then introduced the mother of all tax increases, a tax on everything, a massive carbon tax that is going to take, guess what, out of the pockets of the average Canadian family? $2,600 a year. Let me repeat that again, $2,600 a year. $38 billion out of the pockets of Canadians each and every year. Premier Brad Wall called the carbon tax, the Liberal carbon tax, one of the largest tax increases in Canadian history. And Madam Speaker, Premier Wall is exactly right. But the Liberals say, don't worry, be happy, help is on the way. Help is on the way by way of the Liberal so-called middle-class tax cut. Well, Madam Speaker, it all sounds pretty good, a middle-class tax cut. Who could be against that, Madam Speaker? Well, the fact is, Madam Speaker, is like anything, the devils are in the details. And when we look at the details, we see that there is much wanting in terms of this so-called Liberal middle-class tax cut. Take, for example, someone earning between $62,000 and $78,000 a year. How much would they save under the so-called liberal middle-class tax cut? The answer is $117. Now, is that $117 a week, or maybe it's $117 a month? No, it's $117 a year. What a joke, Madam Speaker. Do you know what $117 a year equals? It works out to about $2.25 a week. $2.25 a week. Now let's put that in some perspective. You know, Madam Speaker, every morning I go to Tim Hortons and I buy an extra large black coffee. And that costs me about $2.10. So this liberal so-called middle-class tax cut, what it means to a Canadian earning between $62,000 and $78,000 is the equivalent of an extra large cup of coffee at Tim Hortons per week, plus a bonus of 15 cents to pocket or spend on whatever you can buy for 15 cents these days. Madam Speaker, what about someone who earns $31,000, someone who earns what is the equivalent of a median income, someone who is smack dab in the middle of middle class? How much would they save under the so-called liberal middle class cut? The answer is zero. Zero. Let me repeat that again. Someone who earns the median income of Canadians, someone who makes $31,000, would save a big fat zero under the so-called liberal middle class tax cut. Madam Speaker, I have said it before, and I will say it again, that the liberal middle class tax cut is nothing more than a liberal middle class tax cut fraud. That's what it is. Now, Madam Speaker, while this Liberal government is increasing taxes on hard-working Canadian families, this government is increasing Canada's deficit and our national debt. We know, Mr. Speaker, now that this government inherited a $1 billion Conservative surplus, and in a year they turned it into a $30 billion deficit. And as bad as that is, it gets even worse because, Mr. Speaker, there is no end in sight to the red ink. You know, during the last election, the Liberals said that they would run what they characterized as modest deficits in 2016, 2017, 2018, but by budget 2019-2020, the budget would be balanced. Well, we know that that promise happens to be, like so many other promises from this government, another Liberal promise made and another Liberal promise broken, because, Mr. Speaker, the budget won't be balanced in 2019, but it won't even be balanced in 2029 or 2039 or 2049. According to the Department of Finance, Mr. Speaker, it won't be balanced until 2055. Mr. Speaker, you know what I would characterize this Liberal fiscal policy? I would characterize it as a fiscal policy of generational theft. It's a policy of fiscal vandalism. That's what it is.
Sure is.
You know, Mr. Speaker, it's not surprising, coming from a Prime Minister who leads this government, who, after all, said budgets balance themselves. And as this government and as the Prime Minister awaits for the budget to magically balance itself, Canadians are left to ask, as a result of the comprehensive review that the government asked the Department of Finance to take, just how many more taxes are going to go up? How much more is this government going to take out of the wallets of hard-working Canadians? Mr. Speaker, this government has a spending problem that has resulted in higher taxes, and Canadians can't take it anymore. They can't afford this government anymore. Thank you.
Questions.